Jimmy Kimmel was back last night, and Jimmy Kimmel is not backing down off of his "I am holier than you are. I care more about people who died. Therefore, you must agree with me." Here's what he had to say last night to critics like me, who said that his gun monologue last night was factually incorrect.
I'm not going to get deep into it again tonight. I said what I had to say last night, but I do want to say something to these nuts who spent most of the day today on television and online attacking those of us who think we need to do something about the fact that 59 innocent people were killed. They say it's inappropriate to be...
Okay, so first of all, we didn't spend yesterday attacking people who think that something has to be done. We attacked you for attacking Americans and saying that Americans are basically a bunch of dunder-headed, cruel jackasses if they don't agree with you on policy. I mean, if you actually want to propose a policy, we can talk about the policy. What I said in the minutes after the shooting is, how about we get all the information on the shooting and then we talk policy? That doesn't seem unreasonable to me. Now, I'm not saying we should never talk policy. I'm saying we should talk policy once the information is in. Why is this a difficult concept? Evidence, information. But again, Kimmel is strawmanning here. He's basically suggesting that all of us who criticized him, we just don't want to do anything, and that's why we're criticizing him. No, I'm criticizing you because what you're saying is factually incorrect, and then you're implying that those of us who want evidence to back our policies are somehow cruel and nasty. Okay, he continues.
Talking about it because it's too soon. Well, maybe it's too soon for you because deep down inside, in your heart, you bear some responsibility for the fact that almost anyone can get any weapon they want. Now you want to cover yourself until the storm of outrage passes. You can go back to your dirty business as usual, but it's not too soon for us because we're Americans, and last time I checked, the First Amendment is at least as important as the Second Amendment. So we will talk about it.
Okay. Jimmy, I mean, seriously, this is egregious stuff. I hope you're a better person than this, but this is really egregious stuff. If I didn't think you were a better person than this, I'd tell you to go to hell, because that's ridiculous, okay? For you to suggest, go back to your dirty business. What's my dirty business? The same business as yours, okay? Exercising my First Amendment rights to talk about policy and politics. The idea that it's a dirty business if we disagree with you. I'm not selling guns. That's not what I do. Okay, I've never sold a gun. I own 2 of them. I've never sold a gun. I'm not in the gun sales business. And it's not a dirty business for people to be in the gun sales business, selling methods of self-defense to Americans who want to defend themselves and their country. Okay, that's just insane. But the suggestion that I bear responsibility for Vegas, the only person who bears responsibility for Vegas is the guy who's pulling the trigger on a bunch of people who are innocent standing below. If we're going to do that routine now, if we're going to suggest that we bear responsibility for our public policy choices with regard to gun control, then I would suggest that Jimmy Kimmel bears responsibility for every dead baby that he backs through Planned Parenthood. Okay, there's a significantly greater connection between that. Planned Parenthood's sole goal is to kill babies. The goal of selling rifles is not to kill innocent people. But I don't do that, right? I'm not saying that Jimmy Kimmel is responsible for every dead baby in the country, because that's absurd. Okay, abortionists are responsible for that. I think he's wrong on policy. I think he's probably good-hearted. For Jimmy Kimmel to suggest that everybody who disagrees with him, again, it's just so disgusting. For him to suggest that I have some sort of blood guilt on my soul, and that's why I don't want to talk about this. I've been talking about it all week, dude. I've made my bones talking about gun control and the case for and against. I know a lot more about it than Jimmy Kimmel does. And for Jimmy Kimmel to suggest that anyone who wants to talk about it who's not named Jimmy Kimmel is somehow motivated by their dirty business, their greed. I promise you, Jimmy Kimmel makes a hell of a lot more money than I do. Jimmy Kimmel's making a lot of money off a lot of leftists who think that he is just the bee's knees because he does this kind of stuff. So if we're going to talk about who's making more money off political pandering, Jimmy, I don't think that's a business you want to get into. Yeah, but it's not just Kimmel. Even more objective journalists like Chuck Todd are suggesting that, it's just a fear of talking about gun control that's led to this impasse.
Folks, there's no doubt about what the Second Amendment does say. But at what point does a person's right to bear arms start infringing on his neighbor's right to live safely and freely? And if you've ever caught yourself checking the exits while at a concert hall or a school assembly or a movie, just in case, you probably already are ready to have that conversation. You would think our leaders should be able to have it too.
Well, again, I think there's actually a pretty easy answer to when does my neighbor's right to bear arms impinge on my ability to live freely, and it's when he starts shooting at me. And that's pretty simple answer. I mean, that's like saying, when does your neighbor's right to own a sword impinge on your right not to be chopped? Well, when he starts trying to chop me. Again, I think there are arguments to be made about what sorts of machine guns have been banned in the United States since 1986. I think that's reasonable. But, but this suggestion that We have not been having the conversation we have. It's just the left is angry because they've been losing, because they don't have any evidence to support their positions. And again, it's just infused the entire culture. You can't even watch sports anymore without this routine. Rachel Nichols on ESPN. Again, ESPN should be staying out of this. But we remember back in 2012 when Bob Costas was doing halftime reports on the NFL, and he decided to inject his own politics. Now we've got Rachel Nichols doing this on gun control.
Officials say this is the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. A phrase I guess they're getting used to because it was only 14 months ago they were saying that about the shooting in Orlando. The Orlando shooting claimed more lives than Virginia Tech. Now this one claims more lives than what happened in Orlando. I don't know how we're going to solve the debate about guns in this country. I just know that while we're all arguing, the body counts keep going up. And more
so we have to stop arguing, you see. You know, we have to stop arguing is what she's saying. And the only way to stop arguing is for us to agree with her. I do love that the talking points for Chuck Todd and Rachel Nichols are nearly identical with regard to these mass shootings. As I said yesterday, using mass shootings as your gauge of gun control policy is actually a foolish idea because they're not representative of the broader whole. I'm not the only one saying that. 538 says that, okay? Nate Silver's site says that. Nate Silver is no right-winger on guns. And then, of course, you have the greatest of all political commentators of the left, Keith Olbermann. So he attacked me on Twitter this morning. I had said yesterday who made Jimmy Kimmel the moral arbiter. And Keith Olbermann tweeted, because whores like real Donald Trump, the GOP, and Ben Shapiro have sold their souls to the NRA and the death cult. Any other questions, kid? So a few things. Number one, is the suggestion that every single person in the United States who owns a gun and believes in gun rights is part of a death cult? Because I think that, again, death cults could be more properly attributed to people who think that Planned Parenthood is doing wonderful work in killing babies. But I actually did have some questions for Keith Olbermann that I tweeted back at him. Questions like, if you are so good at your job, why have you been fired from your last 3,297 jobs? Also, was it his expertise in shouting things like En Fuego that gave him the godlike ability to see into other people's souls? Was it that? And also, where to get his glasses, because those are actually kind of nice. And then also, is he just okay? Is he okay? Because he doesn't seem okay, Keith Olbermann. But this is the entire moral equation the left wants to set up, and I just find it despicable. I find it gross. Okay.
Welcome back. One final point before we go tonight. If Jimmy Kimmel thinks he can win for gun control by using tears, we should ask him why he conveniently forgot during his tearful broadcast to mention the bulked-up security guards he recently stationed at all the doors of his studio. I wonder if those guards are armed. That's right, because celebrities and loser politicians like Hillary Clinton think it's okay to take guns away from us, to blame the firearm instead of the murderer, while they sit in their comfy, cushy nest of elitism, surrounded and protected by men with guns. And they call that common sense. I don't know about you, but I have a few questions for the people who want to rush in and grab my guns, the people who claim gun control will stop mass murder. Question number one. Did the background checks stop Stephen Paddock from murdering 59 people in Las Vegas? No, they didn't. Question number two. Would increased background checks have stopped him? Probably not. Paddock had no criminal record and no mental health diagnosis that we're aware of. Question number three. If making guns illegal stops mass murder, how come evil terrorists in Manchester, England were able to kill 23 people at the Ariana Grande concert without a gun? Question number four. If the weapon is to blame for the crime instead of the criminal who commits the crime, where's the call to ban trucks? 84 people were murdered in Nice, France just last year by a terrorist who used a truck as his weapon. Question number five. I wish this one could go without saying, but the ignorance coming from the left seems to make it necessary to ask the obvious. Are you aware that fully automatic weapons are already illegal? Question number six. Doesn't this just prove our point that bad guys who do bad things will find a way even if it's illegal? Question number seven. If the government prohibits citizens from owning certain types of weapons, would you liberals really want to live in an America where only Donald Trump is allowed to have firearms and you're not? Question number eight, and don't even give me your inevitable, but Australia did it and it worked there argument. Australia doesn't have a Bill of Rights. Australians don't have a constitutional right to bear arms. Australians never had to throw off an oppressive government to secure their freedom. And Australia did not implement a buyback program. They mandated a gun confiscation program. Do you know what would happen if the government here tried to confiscate 310 million guns from 310 million Americans? Civil war. I challenge liberals and gun control advocates to answer these questions. Jimmy Kimmel, Hillary Clinton, any liberal who wants to come on my show, have an honest debate, you're welcome on my show anytime. Meanwhile, I'll close with this point. I tend to agree with Kurt Schlichter here, who tweeted, here's why we won't have a conversation about our Second Amendment rights. Because our Second Amendment rights are rights. There's nothing to talk about. And that's my final point. You can reach me on Twitter at Liz_Wheeler. If you liked the show, please send me an email at oann.com/contact. In the meantime, catch us here tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a good night.